Good evening, it's Lilia from Heal Scotland here, and with me all the way from Texas. I think you're in Texas, aren't you?
That's correct,
Is
Austin,
Freddie
Texas.
Kimmel, the Ampcoil King. Thank you so much for coming on. And obviously, I am in Skye right now, just getting the details sorted for our wild energy spa that we're going to have in this phenomenal magical island. The healing is lodges are at the foot of the Coolins. It is just spectacular. So I wanted you to come on and explain about the Ampcoil, because we're going to have the Ampcoils there and people are going to get to use them regularly, which is obviously, we know what's going to be the best for them. So can you just explain what the Ampcoil is and what it does?
1,000,000%. And they're going to be so lucky to use the technology in that setting because really, the technology was designed to bring people home to their body, to bring people back inside. And we would say it's bringing them back into the alignment that nature creates. Ampcoil is a technology that incorporates pulsed electromagnetic field, frequency therapy, and then software design. So people that hear this may or may not know what PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic field. It's an electromagnetic wave that's stimulating or encouraging a natural recovery process in the cell. And that electromagnetic wave passes through the body like a breeze through a leafy tree. It starts to excite electrons within the body, and within each individual cell, it's essentially taking a cell that has a net positive charge on the inside, a net negative on the outside, and it's increasing that differential, the differential between the negative and the positive. So red blood cells push away from each other. It's like pushing two negative sides of two magnets together. They repel, and so they can better carry oxygen. They also increase this, that as I said, the transmembrane potential, but it increases the cell's ability to make energy. One thing that the technology, a pulsed electromagnetic field, is rated for within the U.S., within the medical establishments, is a non-healing fracture. So that would be a bone that could have broken 7-8 years ago. And when you apply a strong enough electromagnetic field, pulsed electromagnetic field, the osteoblasts start to signal and talk to each other, and that bone that wouldn't heal starts to heal. So I love that example because it's the body knows what to do. The body knows how to repair. Sometimes it loses its signal because there's so much interference or so much noise, albeit, our emotional milieu, the internal milieu of the environmental toxicants. It could be the internal environment of the place we work that we don't love. It could be so many things, but the body knows, but we got to clear away the noise. And I think that's one thing the Ampcoil does so well, is that it delivers this electromagnetic field through the body, exciting the cells, helping healing potential. And then the other piece of it is that Ampcoil has proprietary software known as the Better Guide. And essentially, what the software is, it's a collection of songs that are written for different areas or different states of being. So what I like to tell people is, if you don't know what frequency therapy is, think of, we basically have 8 notes, and then it's an octave. We go an octave up. It just keeps repeating. So we work in a range of 4 to 2200 hertz. And we're writing a frequency experience for something like the brain to have a hard reboot, or something like to move into a positive state of being, or something like supporting a system, like an organ system, like a liver or a large intestine or a small bowel. And all that means is we're creating tones that are resonant or relative to a tissue type or a state of being. So when I say frequency therapy, we might have 100 to 80 different tones that are going to play for 30 to 20 seconds that are going to help bring an area of the body back into balance. It's not dissimilar from if I had 2 aluminum tuning forks and they're tuned to A flat. If I strike the first one, I get waves and particles moving through space. This other tuning fork picks up the information and it starts to sing. That's exactly what we're doing with the body. And so not only is this, and if it's not in your belief system that this is a real thing, it really is. You really can use, I like this. I like the idea. It would be hard to imagine listening to the song All You Need Is Love by the Beatles and not being just, how are you not happy when you listen to that song? Right? And there's a lot of frequencies that are associated with the heart chakra in that song. You can't help it. You're going to sing, all you need is love. You're going to be there. And so the difference with Ampcoil is all the frequencies that are delivered are not audible. It's translated to a silent electromagnetic wave. And then that does two things, is that inaudible electromagnetic wave, it doesn't have a barrier with the skin. It passes right through the skin and the bones and tissues. So it gets this anywhere and everywhere effect. So it's a delivery method. So we're using the pulse electromagnetic waves to deliver these unique sound experiences through this modified Tesla coil. And if you've ever done any reading on Nikola Tesla, arguably one of the most profound geniuses in our state of being in this human form. And he had so many incredible inventions. And one was using coils to transmit energy. And that's why we have the energy grid and the energy system that we have today. So it's borrowing on a lot of different things, but essentially what the company's done is they've taken sound therapy and they've taken PEMF, and they've also taken unique algorithms that we can record the voice from the body and get information from the voice. And they've created it into this nice little 12-pound carrying case where you can just take this thing anywhere and everywhere. And it's, the other thing I'll say about it before I stop talking is that, we've got over 4,000 people over the world that use Ampcoil. It's highly adopted. It's at 8 years the company's been around. So this is a tech that's continued to be used, continued to be celebrated. And it's just such it's a home run. I've been posting these. I wear a bio strap to track the time in between heartbeats, my resting heart rate, and my deep sleep quality. So I've been posting these shots of my deep sleep. I've got one from today, 4.5 hours of deep sleep, which is wild. And the way I'm using it is if I wake up, if I go to the bathroom, if I have a sleep interruption, I'll grab the coil and I'll play deep sleep. And really deep sleep is meant to reset your circadian rhythm, your circadian cycle. So I don't need to use it all the time. But when I do have a sleep interruption, I grab that coil. And that's one example where, most people are lucky to get 50 minutes of deep sleep, let alone 4 hours. So in that deep sleep, again, here's a great example of where the Ampcoil is signaling. It's just signaling my body into a state. In deep sleep, my brain is draining all the garbage from the brain, the glymphatic cells, all the brain cells in your body, they poop too. Our heads are full of shit. And so if you don't get good quality deep sleep, you're not draining that. All the cells that we tear, all the muscle fibers in a hard gym workout, theirs are only repaired in deep sleep. All the micro trauma or microaggressions that I experience in a day, be it somebody doesn't agree with my belief system, maybe there's a little bit of that going on in the world, an argument we have, all those are unwound within deep sleep. So you're like, oh my God, all the system did was put me into a state, which I already can achieve. It's just getting me there longer, faster, and deeper. So it's setting my body up for success over the long run.
Yeah. I mean, I could never have described it like that. Fantastic. And yeah, I actually started using the deep sleep because I've never had a problem sleeping. But what I found recently was I started waking up a couple of times through the night, which I've never done before.
Sure.
And I was like, right, okay, get that on. And do you know the other thing that I found that really helps me to sleep all night is going in the sauna blanket before half an hour before I go to bed.
I love that.
And there's something apparently about the drop in body temperature, and it's not from it's that's what helps you go in. And as you say, I mean, we know as we go through the night, the organs are all doing their bit at certain times because we're all part of that circadian rhythm. And if you're not in that state to allow that to happen, and that's why intermittent fasting is so powerful too, that if you've already digested your food before you try and go to sleep, and the body can actually do what it's meant to be doing through the night without the interference from, undigested food and all the other hormone imbalances and all the other nonsense that people are, suffering from these days.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. I was listening to someone speak today about how, he's talking about all the things that his understanding he needs to avoid to be healthy. And it was true. He did a list of, not touching receipts and microplastics and polyester clothes and avoiding EMFs. But a lot of the things he mentioned for me, they're like the top of the pyramid. Like they're a very small portion of the pyramid. It's the big things that we need to really focus on. I tell people, 10 to 15,000 steps a day, do your best to set your body up for success with that 8.5 hours of sleep. Eating whole foods, not eating foods from a box. I just took a trip to Mexico, and, every single place we went, every store, 90% of the stuff was in a bag or a plastic container or a box. It's food that's meant to live for years in a bag. That's not really nutrition. So it's like the steps and the sleep and the clean food, learn how to regulate your nervous system. These things, I think if we take care of the big building blocks, a lot of the other things, they're going to be little, they're microaggressions. They're not the things that are going to throw you off. However, if you have Lyme disease, if you are struggling with autoimmunity, some of these smaller things over the long enough timeline, sure, it's extra straws that will break the camel's back.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I always say that as well, because people can get overwhelmed. I know when I did my nutritional healing course, I ended up going, there's nothing I can eat. It's like, and then you just have to dial it back and go, right, okay. You just have to do what you can. And I think sleep is such a powerful medicine. And because of devices now, I'm a morning person, so I like my morning. I don't stay awake half the night, but I know a lot of people that do that because they come to life at night, and then they go on their laptop and they start watching things, and you're eating into that. Well, when the healing hormones are flooding in and the body's trying to do this, and the reality is, if we didn't have electricity, we'd be working with the natural light cycles anyway, and we're using electricity to light up the dark, and we're using black curtains to black out the light. I mean, it's mental.
It's wild. But it's this is another thing where I have this one slide that I do in the presentation I did this morning on just technology. Like, do I need technology to be well? And there's this farmer with a yoke on a horse plowing a field, and I'm like, look, this guy is using technology to create a greater yield of carrots for his community because he has to, and I'd say our health is so far offline. I mean, look at the stats, look at obesity rates, look at insulin resistance, look at type 1 and type 2 diabetes, look at autoimmunity, look at autism. I mean, we're winning, especially in the United States across the board. It's a complete epidemic. So that's why I say these technologies are great to knock you back into center, to really support energy production, to support autonomic nervous system tone. They're great adjuncts to all the lifestyle things, and they will make it go quicker. They will make it go faster. They're just such a great state change.
Well, this is the thing. I think we can see even from the voice print, you can see the stress that the body's under. So, like 50, 60 years ago, a lot of these things didn't exist. And so the body is under a lot more stress now, and absolutely the more things that we can do. And I mean, the great thing about the Ampcoil is you can do it anywhere. You can, it's not something that's difficult to add in. A lot of protocols, you're asking somebody to juice and do enemas, it's like, that's going to take time. That's going to, but the Ampcoil, no, it's not. You just need to get into the habit of switching it on and using it regularly. And that's 100%. Now, so obviously we're setting up this healing centre. We want to eventually have a full-time place where people can access this technology. And obviously what we'd like is that it's in every community, so that all over the country, which some of it is more densely populated than others, that people can come in and access the Ampcoil. And I did a trial with 10 women, put them in the Ampcoil 3 times a week for 3 months, and was really quite blown away with the results that they had. And
that's about the timeline. That's about it. It's like, around that 12 weeks, 3 times a week. That's perfect. 3 to 4 times a week is awesome.
And I think that's doable. Obviously, if you have the money, get one for your house. That's a no-brainer.
Of course.
For your family. But if you can't, having one in your area that you can go and use. We just set it up in a beauty room, and people came in. We taught them set them up with a program, and eventually I didn't even need to be there. They could just come in and utilize it themselves. So that's something that we'd really like to see all over the country. So but you also said to me, so detoxing is one of the things that primarily I use it for, but also the sleep now and the full moon. But you were telling me the last time that you're using it for your meditation and that sort of more kind of spiritual, metaphysical side. Do you want to tell me a bit more?
Yeah, so there's one on there called Higher Self on the Ampcoil, which I think it's a 20-minute program and just meant to take you into those deeper states of connection. Again, in those states where that brain is in that, that creativity. I'm trying to think where higher self takes the brain. It's been a little while since I looked at the frequency range, but when the body's in that place of total parasympathetic tone, the nervous system is auto-regulating organs and organ functions. And yes, it is great to be in that mental state. But I think when we use tools like that to go deeper, because a 20-minute meditation may sound long to some people, but it's not very long. If you could go deep as a 2-hour meditation by amplifying that through something like Higher Self, you're getting, 4x the medicine and that state. And I think when we're in those states, we're less likely to be reactive to the outside world. I just heard a quote from somebody. He's like, you can look around the world right now and you can be like, okay, it's a dumpster fire. But at the end of the day, you have an agency in your own life. I think that's where something like, choosing, yes, I'm going to meditate. That's a choice. And then, to be lucky enough to have some of these tools to really boost it, 4x, 5x, 10x, things like the Ampcoil. Higher Self is probably one of my go-tos. Relax All is I tend to run a little hot, I'll get going. So by the end of the day, it's like, I'm on the dopamine train. So I'll need to do things like an ice bath, like a sauna, like meditation with Ampcoil to down-regulate.
I would love to get you over here to one of our festivals and you see this place.
I know. We got to do it.
It'd be absolutely amazing. Yeah. And, I think a lot when I'm doing my retreats now, I do a kind of presentation on the power of sound and how we can feed the body in other ways than just through the mouth. And obviously the kind of acoustic setting that we have in our ears, which is better than any Bose speaker you could ever buy.
That's right.
And obviously what's coming in through our eyes, with light, natural light, and obviously with sounds, and obviously through the Ampcoil. It's interesting. I know it's a coil, but the way you described it there just made me realize, because it's actually like a ball of wool, although it's made out of, is it copper? Or is there something else in there?
Well, the mat system we have is copper, and then there's an aluminum alloy in the coil system. So there's two different alloys in there now.
Yep. And the amplifier literally just makes sure that these journeys really amplify through the system, isn't it? That's how it works.
Yeah, there's enough push through. It's like pushing the energy, as the coil is wound in a certain way, as the electricity starts to spin through the wrapping of the coil. That's what gives it its force. Yep.
Yes. And you can see that when you put the magnet on top of it.
Yep. And you hold a magnet over the coil and it jumps out of your hand.
Do you feel now that people are starting to become more aware of the power of PEMF and different sound frequencies for healing? Or because some people think I'm crazy.
No. I mean, listen, I do. I think it's I think it's getting its day. I mean, listen, there's more people that are more likely to adopt these things than ever before, but it's still like a 0.001% of the general population. It's like, what was I listening to? It's like the same thing with cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin. It's a very, very low adoption rate, even though it's a $1.8 million trillion market cap at this time. And now it's being looked at as a U.S. Treasury reserve in the United States, where people have always told me, you're crazy, you're crazy, you're crazy. I started looking at Bitcoin when it's $3,000. Now it's $93,000. And so it's one of those things that it's just like there's a great picture of Times Square in like 1910, and it's all horses and buggies. And then in like 1913, it's all cars. It once it hits scale, people are like, oh, wait. I had a guy come over yesterday and use it. He had herniated a disc in his back. He was like, hey, can I come use our ice bath? And I was like, sure. And then he was like, oh, what are these? I was like, oh, it's a PEMF device. As he got on some of the devices I have at the house, he was like, oh man, he's like, I feel better instantly. He's like, why aren't these in hospitals? I was like, well, funny story about that. They will be. And he couldn't believe it. He's like, I can't believe how good I feel. And it was only like, 30 minutes. And I was like, yeah, man. I'm like, this. And he was like frustrated. He's like, why? He's like, I looked it up. It's a real thing. It's a real technology. He's like, why don't people know about this? I was like, it's like, why is anything the way it is? It's like, it'll have its day when it has its day. But I think people also in the especially in the wellness space, we tend to jump to like the next thing. It's like, oh, if it's not new, it's not worth revisiting. But it's definitely something that, I just find such great benefit from.
Yeah. And again, it's like, I keep saying to people about we need, my word of the year's been patience. We need patience. You don't do one workout and you're ripped. You don't do one piano lesson and you're a concert pianist. We need to, it's the practice and the repetition, and that kind of trust in knowing that, if you broke your leg and you got a plaster on, you don't sit and stare at it hoping that it's healing.
No.
You trust and understand that it is.
Yeah.
And that's it's the same when you change your diet. There may not be any obvious signs immediately, although you'll usually start to feel better quite quickly. But with these things, just keep telling the body, just keep telling it, keep reminding it. And eventually it's kind of like Joe Dispenza says, it's like you're training a puppy. It's like, stay.
You don't quit brushing your teeth because, you don't see any results. You're like, no, I know to brush my teeth. And this is not really that different. It's like a cellular workout.
Yes.
That's it. You're working out the energetics of your cell. And so it is subtle and it is different, but the science is there to support it. It really is. You can, accelerated wound healing is one of my favorite things to look at, non-healing diabetic ulcers. So that's another one. It's like, there's lots of applications. Oh yeah. I mean, anything that's slow to heal, if you apply an electromagnetic field to it, it's going to heal faster. Right. It's electrons. Electrons are donating to the damaged cell.
I never thought of that.
Yeah.
I've got somebody right now that it might help, actually. You're just saying that.
Yeah.
Well, so are you, the training, because one of my guys was actually saying, can I do some training on it? Can we get a few of the people? Because obviously I want to set up this kind of like wild energy spa.
Yep.
Where we'll have all this amazing technology in the one place so that people can come in and use it. But initially, obviously, I'm going to need somebody to explain it all and, to really help people understand that the power of using it regularly. So where's the best place to get that training? And if somebody's watching this and on replay or whatever and wants to buy one, we need to give them a link for that. Would they just go into ampcoil.com or what?
Yeah, they can go to ampcoil.com. I mean, you can always put them on a message thread with me and I'll connect them with the right person at the team. The device comes with a set of videos. It's a Ampcoil Academy. So I think there's 8 videos. It kind of takes you from unboxing to how to use the app to how to use the device. It's pretty clear. There's a lot, once you get it, it's a lot of intuitive, and for the new user, I always tell people, stick to the rejuvenating feel-good journeys. Stick to the things like deep sleep, the harmonizer, higher self, relax all, pain release, positivity. There's like 5 or 6 that I say, nutrition tune up, stick with those for a week or 2. And then you can get into things like the General Detox album, which is slightly more, there's more regiment to it, right? There's a way in which you go through General Detox. But yeah, it's once you understand it, for me, I kind of trust it. I don't like all things. I think you can overthink it. I think you can get really prescriptive with it and overly nuanced. I'm trusting that all the feel good journeys are creating an anti-inflammatory effect. The detox journeys are creating a little inflammation. So that's signaling your immune system to go in and do a little bit of cleanup. So depending on what my reserves are, that's how I'm going to use those.
Yes.
Like I'm not going to run a cleanse if I'm, don't feel like I have the reserves in the tank to do the cleanup. I might want to do like some nutritional work and some breath work and some, some really like, cleaning out energetically in my life before I jump into some of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I did it. I mean, when I got to it first, I was like, boom, get this.
Yeah.
Straight in. And then at night, I'd be like, wow, that thing works, because
Oh,
you can feel it,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think you're absolutely right. And also, if you start kind of dousing up some of the inflammation, the body will right itself anyway of a lot of things.
Yeah.
And
100%.
obviously now it's prevention as well, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, listen, I've had you for 30 precious minutes, and I very, very much appreciate it.
I
So
love
thanks
it.
so much for all your help, and hopefully I'll see you in Scotland soon at one of the festivals or
Oh, we
one of
got to
the
make it
main
happen. I
things.
mean, that place looks incredible.
It's just off the, as I say, it's really, really off the charts. I can't believe how lucky we are to get it. And
Yeah,
I was on a call just before I came on to you with some people that have been vaccine damaged very severely. And we're going to take them there for a couple of days and give them a nice little break and do a wee bit of brainstorming about how we can take things forward and let them see the technology that we have, and hopefully bring some hope in, I was saying, it's got to be, we've got to have hope, we've got to look forward, we've got to go, right, what are we going to create? It's got to have that energy behind it, because if not, you might as well jump off the cliff now.
There's lots of positivity, there's lots of helpers in the world, there's lots of people doing great stuff. You just got to look. You're gonna find exactly what you're looking for. So I remind people of that. Like, we're very selective in our hearing and listening. So be sure you're clear on what you want to see. Yeah.
Well, I'm very clear.
Yeah, I know you are. It's gonna happen. We gotta find somebody to fly me over there and get my lodging. I'll totally come over. I'll totally come over. We'll do a talk on PEMF. We'll do a talk on sound therapy. We'll do a talk on
doing great talk. Medicine.
Great talk right now on lymphatics. I'm really passionate about lymph right now. Working with the team Flow Presto in New Zealand. So we're really exciting stuff, that just across the board. So I'm happy to come over and share, and we could talk about how we can make that happen sooner rather than later. 2025.
Yeah, for sure. That's the year.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks a million, hun. Great to see you.
Sleep well.
Yeah, you too.
Okay, bye.